Okay, welcome everybody to the CEFACT Global Trust Registry project. Couple of quick comments on codes of conduct and IPR. So those of you, all the people on this call at the moment are fully aware there's a way of working for CEFACT projects, code of conduct. Principal things to call out are intellectual property rights and the manner in which contributions are considered. So it's effectively like an open source approach and a royalty-free license for work that's contributed. So you can find the links to those concepts are on this deck and publicly available through CEFACT. I think everyone on the call is well aware of those, so I won't delay on them too far. For today, what I thought we'd do is, I think everyone on the call so far is well known to each other. Do you all know Harley? Is everyone going to say hi, Harley?
Yeah, I can say hello again. Hey everyone, my name's Harley Thomas. In my, private professional life, I help run a traceability software company called Trust Provenance in Australian agriculture. I'm also just starting to lead up the tech working group of the UNTP as well. We have our first call actually in just under 2 hours. If you're interested to join as well, you'll be able to find the meeting link on the UNTP Tech Working Group governance page as well, and always looking for volunteers to help out. Thanks.
I love that, Harley. It's like there is a sort of packed 3 hours of CEFACT project discussions going on from now until, or 3 hours from now. Thanks for that. The previous meeting minutes, so we were basically exploring the work, Alina, that you basically did the work, and I stumbled through presenting it as best I could, but I didn't do it any disservice, I hope. But
Don't be so humble. You're doing a great job.
So basically, we went through what is a fairly substantial piece of work that Alina's been working on about the meaning of a digital identity anchor. And for Steve and I and others that have worked on the UNTP side of the work, this is new and novel perspective about how might we understand what it means to be issuing a digital identity anchor, to have one in your possession and to present it to others who then make use of it, and what's the legal meaning of this. And Alina, luckily, is both trained as a lawyer and very familiar with UN Citral and ML-ETR. So there's a bunch of sort of goodness inside those recommendations. So that we're working on those, and there's a working document that you all should have access to. And I could probably, you all have access to this presentation as well, don't you? You've got the link if you needed to access it. You can, yeah, okay, cool. That'll become useful a bit later. So the working document is there. One of the things that came out of that discussion with Alina's work was this idea of 3 levels of let's use the word assurance, so that's a bit loaded, where the registrar has absolute authority and control over some data that they create, they issue, they decide what the identifier is for an organization and so on. There might be data that is given to them by the subject, by the organization, for example, and may want to have an identity registered in their registry. That data might be checked. So it could be data that the registrar has checked and confirmed is accurate at the time of presentation, and they might include in their bundle of information about this organization. The third level would be information that the organization presents that either is not subject to testing or checking. It's if you imagine a human level point, it might be your nickname that you suggest you'd like to be known by, nothing of any significance, but it's just kind of, we like to be referred to as this. So that might be a level of information that hasn't been checked, or it might be something substantive, but the registrar has said, we didn't check this, but we acknowledged it was presented to us by the subject. So there's sort of 3 levels of information that might be present in the body of registration by the registrar. A whole bunch of other discussions about life cycles and economic benefits and so on. And luckily on this call is the person who offered to help consolidate the work. So Sankashan was working with me earlier this week and has probably been carrying on that work on how best to consolidate the existing pieces that we have into some sort of one document sort of structure. So there's 2 main things that we're working on. One is a number of pieces from Manos that were submitted on the whole of the UNTP spec, Steve. So he dumped or downloaded a copy of the markdown for the UNTP spec itself, and then he kind of went through like a Word document comments on it. And most of them are very constructive, simple sort of improvements to text and some other things, and some of them deserve more consideration and thought. And what Sankeshan is doing is working out how to take that content, Alina's work, combine it into a document that we've already got as a deliverable, and then kind of move on from there. Sankeshan, do you want to give us a heads up on how that's going?
As of this week, it is not going very well because the past 2 days have been busy in meetings with everything else. But I will complete what we talked about. And the challenge that I see is everyone is doing work by forking off a copy of the main document, and that is kind of creating good outlines that need to be merged at some point so that there is progress on the main stream of work that's happening. It's a common issue with when we are working with documents and not code. So this is not, at least John and I have seen this before, and if not addressed quickly, we know how the drama unfolds.
So the sooner we get into one space and get everybody working on the same, literally on the same pages, the better, as for both of us, really. So as ever, there's a whole bunch of recordings, transcript available for everybody who wants to see that. Today, I want to talk about pilots, and this is very early, not very early. It's actually the right time to be talking about pilots according to the schedule, but it's early in the sense that we don't have them yet formally established. This discussion is really to help start that process. There are at least 2 pilots anticipated by Steve when he first drew up the sort of project brief that got approved. The purpose is sort of both the test recommendations that we come up with in this project, and also it explores some of the thinking, naturally, some of the thinking that's inside the UNTP body of work as well. I'm suggesting that these pilots will have two streams of thinking. One is that we're exploring how we might, sorry, I need to admit somebody that's coming in now. We're exploring ideas in the pilots, and that will generate sort of feedback and learnings, and we'll be able to sort of make better recommendations because of that. And the other is that we're hopefully going to demonstrate that it does actually work. So what I'm allowing us is the idea that we will have some things that actually work well and prove the point, and some things that don't work but prove effectively another point that we need to kind of tune our thinking up a bit. So I'm not expecting these to work first time. It's not like when you have a proof of concept that you're doing for a client where you know the software works and they know the software works and you're kind of running it, but you know, it would be a shock if it didn't work, because otherwise what you'd be showing me. But these pilots will likely have some learnings coming out of them. I think for each of these pilots, there's going to be some obvious kind of common elements. So we are going to want to have an authoritative registrar involved. We're going to want to have supply chain participants of some form or other, so suppliers and buyers or other sort of combinations or other types of participant. And we're going to want to have a UNT-FACT sort of directory idea as well, so that we want to sort of do this loop process. And I'll show you I'll show you a sequence diagram that has that idea in it on the next slide. And that we will want to have some sort of common actions that are present in each of these pilots. So we want to be looking at issuing a digital identity anchor. We want to be looking at presenting one, if you've got one, or providing access to it through a sort of linked data approach. We want to show how you might verify an anchor, and we'll also want to show how you would check registration. Was that actually an authoritative registrar that issued this anchor? This is go to.
On the scope, in my expectation, most of the value from a DIA comes not so much from presenting a DIA, but from attaching a DIA to some commercial process like invoicing or whatever, right? So that you get identity in context.
Yes.
And so maybe your scope needs to just reflect that when we talk about use cases. We might want to bring some of these.
I think that's absolutely right, and I kind of get to that point of expanding that each pilot should build in a meaningful use case that is true for what they want to demonstrate, and it would be more than just a DIA. So conformity credentials and facility credentials and invoices, or whatever it is that the use case is demonstrating, will necessitate other elements being exchanged, and that's sort of essential. I was just saying, I guess with that pattern I was calling out before, the bare minimum is something like this, right? And on this diagram, you'll see I've also not elaborated to those other elements you're rightly saying should be included. So this has got a very simple sort of three body problem, 3-part sort of play, where the first part is that the authoritative registrar needs to be added to the UN CEFACT directory in some way or other. So that's obviously something we need to sort of model and check and sort of see how might we. The second part is the idea of that authoritative registrar now issuing a digital identity anchor to a participant in a supply chain, one or more. That's up to the use cases to decide how many are needed for their pilot. And then the third phase is basically making use of having a digital identity anchor in some form of transaction. And as you've rightly said, Steve, a transaction is likely to have far more than just I am who I say I am as part of that transaction. So one of the things that even drawing this very simple diagram is evidencing, I suppose, is that because of the nature of a verifiable credential, you can kind of cryptographically check that the thing is intact and not being tampered with and so on. If you actually already knew the public key of the signatory and others, then in a sense, you don't necessarily need to go places to find things. But if you don't have those things, you have to go places to find things. So that the connections with these sort of dotted lines about going to, for example, verifying a DIA requiring you to go to the authoritative registrar, that's necessary if you've not connected with them recently. If you have connected with them recently, then you may not need to do that. That text, this is a bit geeky, that text you can write as a mermaid syntax diagram language, right? So you can write that sort of thing. And that sort of writing it in text makes it easy to move blocks around and add things and change things without changing the diagram. And then the diagram can be automatically generated. So that text you saw generates this diagram. And you just put it into the thing and it pops out the diagram. I know many of the people on the call know that already, but for some people it might be useful to know that you can actually just kind of write down the description of what should be happening and it draws it for you. In this diagram, Joe's feedback to me when he first looked at that previous slide, this one here, was wouldn't they actually check the authoritative registrar directory first? In other words, a participant who's connecting with an unknown supplier, say, is going to check to see, is there the registrar that's registered them, are they actually on the list? That might be the first check. So his comment was, well, would they do that first? And I don't know. It's up to the pilot as far as I'm concerned. But on this one, I've just flip those around to show you it's easy to do that in the text. You can just move the block up and down. Back on pilots. So pilots are going to be responsible for each use case as far as I'm concerned. So that my thinking is they will, with our help, Alina and mine and others who want to help, will shape their own use case. There's obviously going to be some sort of minimal set of interactions, though you've seen those in the diagrams before. And then they will want to add additional factors. This is to Steve's point earlier. They're going to want to have to, I think, include other factors in their pilot, because otherwise it's a kind of a transaction that's not likely to have power or use in a supply chain. So they're going to want to have other credentials being used or other artifacts being exchanged, like invoices and so on. The other thing I think that needs to be kind of fleshed out before we start on the pilot is what are the benefits we want to demonstrate and who would be the beneficiaries? So one of the ways of thinking about this is that I know, because Alina's on the call and the Spanish registrar has been very active, the Spanish registrar wants to do this, right? So what we want to do is capture what the benefits are that the Spanish registrar sees in this, the same as we would do for Canada, who's also expressed interest, and the same, I know some of our India colleagues are on the call, so the same as we would want to do with the Indian registrar as well. Alina.
Yes, hello, John. Actually, I wanted to tell you that we have great news because our board will actually proceed with the formal appointment of a legal and technical team to start working on pilot. And we're quite happy about this news. I just hope there other countries will also join and develop pilots as well.
Well, that's
we
great.
were hoping that maybe India would also develop and implement a pilot project, and as far as I know, Canada as well.
Is that publicly announceable, Alina?
For the moment, I think we should wait to for
Okay.
the team to be formally appointed, and then I think we could publicly announce it as well, so that
All right, thank you.
more people get excited about the idea and they also join.
That is very encouraging news. From a Canadian point of view, I know, and Steve probably has also been talking with some of the Canadian.
The problem, I mean, it's not a problem that we soon have elections and our board, we will have a new board in November. So we are in a transition process at the moment. And I think this is, that's why I would wait a little bit.
Are you allowed in this time frame to make that decision and make those appointments, or do you have to wait till after November?
No, because the decision has already been taken by the board that we currently currently have. But nevertheless, we will have a new board in November. So as we are in a transition process, they said let's wait, because of course the implementation and development of the pilot would also need a budget, obviously. So this budget will probably be approved by the new board, and this is the main reason.
On the Canadian registrar's point of view, we've had. Could you mute just for a second, Leon? Thank you. British Columbia has been voicing very positive desire to run a pilot as well. So Brianna from BC has been sort of in touch with me. I was hoping that she would be on the call. She's probably be on the call tomorrow because it's a better time zone for her. So I'm hoping that we'll get Canada to have some contribution in tomorrow's meeting at midnight your time, Lena. So I'm afraid it's not a good time for you. What I'm doing on this slide as well is, and actually I missed one that I've realized later in the deck is another one to add into this list. There's a number of beneficiaries, people or organizations that might benefit from such a thing as this global trust registry that we're proposing. One of the others that's not listed here is the regulator. So in other words, if you're regulating a thing, it's easier to regulate a thing that you can test and verify on. So the regulator will also have a benefit out of it. And the other beneficiary is the nation state themselves. Pretty well all countries in the world are looking for productivity gains. They're all looking for reduction in fraud and other issues affecting economies. So in a sense, we should be mindful that there's a good reason to argue for countries to do this. There are going to be, I suggest, some sort of constraints and recommendations about pilots. And I confess I made this up. I wrote this myself, so it deserves critique. But the sort of principles I'm putting down here are that I imagine that pilots will be self-sustaining. So in other words, they'll kind of run themselves more or less. We, Alina and I and others that wish to help will be paying a lot of attention to them as best we can, and they can tell us how they're going and we'll give advice or support, but basically they're kind of running themselves. And that extends to things like infrastructure and any cost of resources and so on. There aren't funds to allocate to pilots. So the pilots will have to be self-sustaining in that sense. There are some things we can do for pilots, of course. We can help advertise that they're doing a pilot. We can give them some space on the UNICC repository that we have for this project to sort of advertise what they're doing with the pilot, and we want to do that. So there are a number of things that are sort of synergetic that we want to help promote what they're doing and echo it, but fundamentally they're kind of running their own show. And the other thing is, of course, if it's done within the UN CEFACT way of working, then the intellectual property rights and other things, there'll need to be some awareness about what parts will be made for the common good and which parts, if they have any, that they wish to retain as some sort of commercial thing. Steve, is this making sense for you? Because it feels very much like the extensions work in UNCP.
Yeah, it looks quite reasonable.
Okay.
I think we should, when we announce this, look for, obviously, the authoritative registers are a fundamental part of any pilot, but the use case happens when you bring together some business stories around that. So we're likely to want to attract some, one or two software platforms that issue invoices, some traders, people like that, and I know that the Asian Development Bank's really interested in this, so we may be able to also work through development banks to engage, perhaps with developing countries, to participate as well. I'll chase up with them on that.
That'll be, and there another example, I think, of a beneficiary that I haven't put in there. The trade finance and financing of development and so on is another part of this, the puzzle that we could see benefits for. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to be kind of cheeky here and turn a discussion into a working group. And I don't know if this piece will work at this point, but I hope it will. If you do have access to this deck, or if you saw the Slack channel or the group IO email, you'll see that I posted 3 URLs for forms, which I wrote quite quickly this morning. If I click on them, you'll sort of, let's do the benefits one. So what you should see when you click it is some sort of flash thing about, well, you're going to give some ideas about benefits for this project. I see because I'm logged in as me on this Google space, I see that message. You will see you can sign in if you want to. And then because the way this works, it can be anonymous. We're going to ask you to just give your initials or something so we can kind of follow up. We don't need everybody to be Mickey Mouse, but if you can do something that lets us follow up, that'd be great. And what we're then thinking about is that there are some likely candidates. To make it easier, we listed some ideas about who you might be speaking for. So I would say I'm probably going to be a supply chain advisor consultant or something. So this is my perspective. It's important to know if a registrar is saying this is the benefit to the registrar, that's kind of more powerful than if I say it's a benefit to the registrar, if you see what I mean. So if Alina, as a registrar, says a benefit for the Spanish registrar is this, that's a more powerful statement than me thinking this might be a benefit. It needs to be tested if I've said it. And then that's my perspective, I'll then describe a benefit, right? So I'd write a little text about a benefit, say who I think the beneficiary is, and I might have an other for the beneficiary. And then I might use a checklist of types of benefit. And if it's none of those, then I might write something else. And this checklist is basically a multiple thingy checklist. This is a radio button thing. So it's a one-off type thing. Arguably, I could have probably made that multiple beneficiaries. Maybe I should have. And then how significant is it? Major, small, minor? And do you think it's going to happen in the next sort of after we go live, 1 to 3 months, like almost with immediate effect? Or is it something that happens over a longer period of time? And that's sort of just for me to help understand, because benefits tend to be realized over a period of time after a project goes live, not at the moment a project goes live, except for a few things. So that's the thing. I was going to shut up actually for a few minutes and let people have a go at this. Is that? But please ask any questions. Are you having a go at accessing these at the moment? Put your hands up.
I'm just, but on the first question, my context, I just want to clarify.
Yep, please.
I can dream up any context, even though it's not really me. Like, for example, I can be a context like a customs authority.
You Steve, and I know you know about those people very well. What I was trying to go for is that authenticity sort of thing, that if you are in fact a customs official, if you give a reason why they would benefit, then that's a really powerful thing, because it's a lived experience, as people like to say now. Whereas, you can still, as Steve Capel, a very experienced in supply chain dude, write a benefit for that type of person. That's of course useful and will be noted. It's just, I think it's nice to know if someone's saying it from their lived experience or professional experience. Alina.
Yes, for me the benefits are clear, especially in the field of business or trade register and asset registers. Maybe I would also add traceability as well. But most of my colleagues were wondering what would the benefits be in the field of land or property, and how could this apply? I don't know if Steve maybe has an idea, or
I think Steve would be a good person to answer that.
Well, I think there's a lot of contexts where proof of authority or ownership over a cadastral lot add integrity to business process. So one of them might be claiming that your farm is compliant with European deforestation regulation. Who defines the boundaries of the farm? It's really a legal arrangement, and if the farmer's free to declare any boundaries, then they might just exclude the bit that where they've chopped down the trees, right? So linking it to no, this is really your farm. That's what, you know, I think there are quite a few facility or location related values that we could.
And a shared knowledge between myself and Alina, and I think you may have met Clary in Geneva, Steve. Clary Schellhauer from New Zealand,
Yeah.
is representing a European Retail Association, and she's keen to discuss with Alina how that might work with the Spanish registrar. And the use case she was explaining to me was around this idea of the authenticity of claims about origin of place. So if I use a typical European example, Champagne comes from the Champagne region. Parmesan cheese comes from, you know, Italy. Whatever, these sort of local required domination control, whatever, the idea that it comes from a particular place, and you've got to prove it, is what I think the European Retail Association are keen to do, as are others around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be one of the land things. So the way the form goes, Steve.
No, I agree with you. Nothing more.
The way the form works is that as we fill out ideas, it feeds into a little spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet will let me sort of populate the. So if I were to go back to the deck here, the next sort of slides will show what people have put in as ideas. Now, this is real time, right? So if I do an update on that form, if has anyone actually submitted something yet? Just I'm
just trying to. I'm double clicking on short answer text, and it's not.
We're doing real testing at the same time, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, maybe I've got a tab. Have I can't seem to move beyond the enter your name field into the.
Is there do you want to show me your screen? Is there a next?
Oh,
Hey, John, mine says Steve Capel on my screen. I don't know how that is possible.
I don't know how that's possible. What's Steve done?
I don't know.
Okay, let me. Which one are you using, Harley? What's your
Benefits ideation?
Okay, so we're in the benefits. So if I back out of doing this, and I go back in again as a, oh yeah, look at that. Steve's edited the form. So Steve has superpowers because he's part of the team that have edit rights to the thing. So unfortunately, yes, Steve's edited the form. That's quite funny. Not your fault, Steve. My bad. There is a different, when it's a bit like using a Google Doc, there's a different view when you're editing and when you're filling out the form, and I should have locked it away so it couldn't be changed.
Okay. So I'm a form editor.
Yeah,
Right,
you're a
right,
form
right.
editor. I should go back in and sort of edit the form myself to stop it sort of having that quality. I should be able to do that. Show me that. Oh, here we go, down there. My pencil was so far away I couldn't see it. So this, can I go backwards in time? Versions, unpublished. Yeah. Doesn't look like I got versions. Undo. Can't undo your changes.
I've tried to undo them myself.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know if it's worked.
We'll know in a second. Yes, last it was made seconds ago by Steve Capel. It looks like it has. You got your description. Yeah, that looks like it's done, I think. And I should be able to say, can I stop making changes?
Yeah, I don't want to edit the form. I just want to give an answer.
Yeah. So you should be able to, as you are, you should be able to go to anyone link. No, restricted.
I wonder whether a shared spreadsheet might be simpler.
Well, I did feel like saying as I started this session, the explanation about petard and hoisted by your own petard again, which is a naval expression from old England around launching a rope between two ships and use a bit of an explosive device to blow the rope over from one place to another. And if you get it wrong, you're lifted into the air by the explosive device that you meant to get the rope across with. So I have frequently hoisted myself with my own petard, which is kind of what I've just done. But I know that it will work if I've got the settings right, and I just didn't have the settings right. So hopefully, certainly for people like Harley and Sankashan. Sankashan, did you get through the maze I left?
Yeah. That worked.
It did work.
Yeah.
So do we have? So does that mean we've got some ideas on this one? Have we got any responses so far?
No. I haven't completed to the submission stage. I just clicked through to check that the form works.
Okay.
I've never been able to do a Google form correctly, so I'm amazed at the dexterity you have shown.
Oh boy, I have petarded myself. So it is possible for people just to edit the spreadsheet. It just leaves more risk of unstructured data or people overwriting each other. What I wanted to avoid, humorously enough, was people overwriting each other's data. And
Yes.
that was the aim, right? And unfortunately, I failed on that one. But are you back in the document now, Steve? Are you in the submit? So if you're looking at the view I'm looking at, you can go to the responder link and then go to the responder. So you can go to the view that is basically giving a response, as sort of I was doing, or you can even open it in a Google browser or any browser actually where you're not logged in, an incognito browser, and you go to the link. It won't then log you in. Okay. So I'll ask the question again. Has anyone managed to fill out one of these? Oh, here we go. So
This is me.
yeah,
I haven't filled anything yet, but is this the edit the form screen or the provide announcement screen?
So see the button that has like an eye at the top.
Yeah.
There's a on the menu there. Yeah, one that looks like an eye.
Yeah.
You click that. Okay, so that's what you should see when you're doing the form submission. So if you go next, it should.
Okay. Right.
So that's
And most people would just go straight to this. I went to the edit one because you've given me superpowers or something. Is that
yeah, because you, Elena, myself, and Joe, and I think temporarily Sankashan, because he's working on some documents, have more extensive rights to the space. Most people have contributor or kind of commenter rights to the data and the documents we have, but you've got superpowers. And with great power comes great responsibility, Steve.
Yes.
Anyway, so I probably should stop talking and actually enter a few things in if you like. If we have, it's now my time 5:37. We've got another 13 minutes. Should we spend just a few minutes filling some things out, then we can talk about what we think? Is that useful? Should we focus on benefits first or use cases? Any preferences? Gosh, live feed of what I'm saying.
John, how long do you think these pilots are going to run in terms
the anticipation is that we would finish at least to some extent by, say, the end of the calendar year. That might be ambitious. The deadlines we really do have are a July 2026 plenary for at which the recommendations from this project need to be in place some months before to allow the people who review such documents to have a chance to review and raise comments and so on. What sort of time frame, Steve, is the minimum for review for recommendations for plenary?
Is there a recommendation as part of this?
Yeah,
Or-
the output of this my understanding is that the output of this project effectively are recommendations that go to the, that we recommend that the UN CEFACT create, or the UN creates a registry or a directory of. And so this will be a recommendation because it hasn't been.
I just got to clarify the difference between the UNC or UNEC precise meaning of the term recommendation and our general understanding, right? So we can produce standards products like a DIA specification, guidance notes, all that sort of stuff that says here's standards and guidance. A recommendation is a policy recommendation to member states, which may well be a valuable thing to do as part of this. And I can't remember whether we put it in scope. The difference is one is kind of technical implementation specification standards. The other one is policy recommendations. And the second one, unlike the standards, needs member state approval in the plenary. Whereas when you publish something like the DIA or whatever, it's just bureau approval, which can happen every month in the meetings.
So certainly the way you structured that sounds like accusatory. I didn't mean that at all. My understanding has been that at least there are some recommendations, and if I think about the nature of what we're proposing here, we're proposing.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and we're proposing setting up a system somewhat like ICAO PKD type thing. That there's a facility provided by the UN that countries can choose to participate in. And it's a minimal cost to participants, but it provides us maximal value and sort of enabling trust things. So at least some of it, I think, will have a recommendation quality. And yes, you're right. A lot of it, the rest of it should be signable. If it has any quality about recommendations for policy, and it needs therefore to go to the sort of Uber plenary, how long do they need?
If it's going to go as a policy recommendation, then it's a 2-month review period and another 2 months of few weeks or a month or so of multi-language translation formally done, and then a submission about a month before the plenary. So quite a long backlog. You're unlikely to get to a recommendation for the next plenary, which is due in May. You might do.
Even if you were writing it now, you mean?
Even if you were writing it, I mean, yeah, it's possible. You'd want to be having a final draft in something like January.
Reminds me of and Joe's just arrived, the Irish joke about if you want to get there, I wouldn't start from where you are now.
Yes.
Alina, your hand's up.
Yes, and I was just wondering, Steve, don't you think that it would be better that the project would end up in a recommendation policy due to the fact, because I'm thinking on one hand about DIA, but on the other, GTR and the Global Trust Registry would be or however you want to call it, directory or whatever. Most of the member states register would need to register there. So
this is just, I do believe a policy recommendation. I forgot, it's a while since I read the scope of the project, but yeah, it should be there.
Yeah, certainly my memory is there are it does imply that there's a principle or a policy to be recommended. Okay, well we'll go into that in a little later. Maybe we should bring it back to the purpose for today. The idea, I know because we've just had Joe arrive as well, and a few others, that the purpose of today's discussion is to sort of start the thinking about the pilots that we want to run, who should be part of these pilots, what is the use case, the idea, the example that we want to run through with the pilots, and what the benefits are that we're seeking, both that we think are in general available to participants if this thing were created, but also from the specifics of a pilot and the use case of that pilot, what benefits we're seeking to demonstrate or prove and test. You can see Steve's busy hopefully filling out those things, and what we are working on is these forms that I've put into the deck. So
I can't submit.
Oh no, Steve. Oh, wait a bit. What's you need to choose benefit. You've missed one of the mandatory fields. Choose. No, not so far up. It's just like roll down a bit. Last question on the form.
This one over 12 months. I chose that.
Choose one. Oh. Why is it not? What does it give you a message about? Form cannot be submitted.
You're in preview mode.
Oh my god! So sorry. Did you manage to submit one, Harley?
I was just about to. I had a question about the. Sorry, I've lost screen now.
How do I get out of preview mode? I have to leave the site.
Oh, it's such an embarrassment for me, Steve, not for you. Harley, what was your question again? Sorry.
Yeah. So when the question, when do you anticipate this benefit would be realized?
Yes.
Is that including like the barriers to adoption as well, or just if this magically existed today?
Yeah. We wave a magic wand. We've built something called the Global Trust Registry. It exists, and participants can now join it. How long would it be before these benefits start sort of being realized? It may not. I'm not confident that it's a meaningful question to ask at the moment, but I think there's something in me that says some things might happen sooner, things might happen later in terms of the benefit realization. So that's why I put that question in. So it's do something sensible, I think, is the best way I can suggest answer that question.
I did the biggest option because I think there's a lot, but I submitted it and it looks like it's all fine on my end now.
Okay. So if I go to let's just see if we can get that update. Oh, we have one. So if I now share the screen again, just to show you what will happen as we hopefully fill these out. If I zoom in a lot, I've obviously put a typo in one of the things, but Harley's given us an idea about as a software implementer. Actually, no, that was your typing, Harley, wasn't it? The idea of the benefit land ownership. Do you want to talk us through it? That should be better. Talk us through the benefit you were thinking of.
Oh yeah, I mean it was pretty much what Steve alluded to before. Like in Australian agriculture, there's different like identifier schemes that get used between livestock and grain. Livestock has PICS, which is like a property identification code. Grains has a national grower register. At the minute, there's this friction as to, I guess, have any kind of proof that person is actually that owner of that identifier as well. And then obviously there's huge issues of how do you actually prove out ownership of cadastral boundaries as well. So I was really just building on what Steve suggested.
Yep. That makes sense. Does make a lot of sense, obviously. Okay. And other than that, the useful question about how long, what's the meaning of the how long question? So it's fairly significant benefit because if you remember our scale goes to, and I'll put that probably in the heading, goes from like 1 to 10 or something, I think the scale. So it's sort of fairly significant benefit, 12 months. And what I hope we'll see if this thing works is that a fairly large set of ideas about the benefits that we can then sort of theme. The reason I'm doing it like this is we're all in different time zones in different parts of the world, and I just feel we need to do something that lets us work asynchronously on it. So tomorrow's meeting, I'll repeat the sort of walk through and get to the point where we propose how to, and hopefully I'll have fixed a few of the form issues that Steve helpfully found for me.
John, one of the things is very often for a given use case, like trade finance or conformity credential authorities, there'll be multiple beneficiaries, or the customs, the importing in integrity, who packed the box question. There's multiple beneficiaries for the same use case. So we might have a challenge. Maybe this is a post-submission kind of tidy up, but I can see a whole bunch of benefits coming in with names that you have to look at them afterwards and go, oh, is that okay? That one's about land, this one's about borders, and then sort of assemble them together into a more meaningful collection of use cases with benefits.
Exactly right. I'm expecting work to be done. The couple of things I wanted to achieve by opening it up to the group is, firstly, I've described myself as lazy as I can be, but no lazier. But the idea is that leverage the group's knowledge and ideas, and not just make it my own, because that or Alina's, say mine and Alina's work. It should be the group's work, and therefore it's more authentic if it's the group has contributed to it. And yes, you're right, Steve. We'll have no doubt have to unpick and understand what's been submitted and go back. That's why having some identifier of the contributor will help us sort of follow back up to say, can we understand a bit more about what you meant there, and how does that work? So yes, there will be work to do. You're right.
Yeah.
So if I am sharing my screen, aren't I? So if I go back to a normal fit of that thing, the idea will be that we have these sort of 3 blocks sort of filled out. So we might cheekily fill out in pencil, say, if we have that capability, Alina, that Spain has an idea about what they might do, or we might decide actually we could call it a use case idea. Alina, do you have already a sense in the group about what use case you want to explore?
Not for the moment.
Okay, it might be that Clary or others in your group will help shape that up as to what that might look like.
Yes, I will check. I will check with the group.
Cool.
John, since the initial interest expressed by the Indian government, have you heard anything more from them? Do I need to follow up with them and say, hey, this thing's still going on?
3 of the original team who came with that are online. Yes, go ahead.
Ah, okay. I misunderstood. I obviously I can see there's some Indian colleagues, but I thought you were from Indian Commerce, not from Indian government. Oh, wonderful. Okay, great.
Ministry of Commerce and Industry from Indian government side.
Yes.
I think you have
Okay,
had a word
thank you.
with Mr. Moin Afaq. So we are the team of this ongoing project.
So,
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Now we've got you sort of connecting in the call. Is this going to work for you guys? Can you see this in terms of shaping up with the Indian desire, benefits, and so on?
Yeah, it is particularly for the rate finance, as Steve has highlighted earlier. Like many certification will have the trust kind of registry. So the import and export in countries will have to be on board all kind of thing, and this might work on that kind of use cases.
So I very much encourage you to please, apologies that the forms are a bit rubbish, but hopefully they're good enough to use. But if you do struggle with yourself or the team, don't hesitate to reach out to myself and Alina.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll help. But it'll be fantastic to have your contribution and clarity about what you'd like to achieve.
I think tariff compliance, border risk, trade finance, there's a lot of them, right? It'd be very interesting. Yeah.
Very hot topics.
Okay.
Very
Yes.
hot topics. Yeah, indeed. Now I make a promise normally to finish these at sort of 10 minutes to the hour. I know, Steve, you got to run other workshops, and I know, Harley, you're doing the same. So my suggestion is we can carry on working on this in the background. Please, any faults with these forms are mine. Just reach out to me and I'll fix it. Tell me what's not working, and I'll make it work. But that's how I'd like to carry on. You can carry on filling those for the next few days, really. I'll get the other side of the world, hopefully, to have a look at them tomorrow, and then we'll give it some time for people to start filling out, and I'll probably start communicating how we're doing with them before the next meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Great to see you all again. Until the next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Great stuff.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lena.
Thank you.